Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. For this professional development session, we are pleased to introduce Jerald Barris. Dr. J. Barris is the husband of a 7th grade reading teacher and the father of a soon-to-be 3rd grader. Dr. Barris serves as a high school principal for grades 9 and 10 at the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, West 2 Secondary Regional Representative for the Pennsylvania Principals Association, and a member of the School Board of Directors in West Middlesex Area School District as an adjunct professor of curriculum supervision at Westminster College. I feel like I just went through like a vocabulary lesson here. Lots of big words, lots of titles, but we're so pleased. Dr. Barris, another thing about him is he just loves spending time with his family in the great outdoors or poolside. And as kind of a founding charter cyber school, we're so excited to have him on. Welcome to the show, Dr. Barris.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate you having me on. And I'm excited to share some of my experiences as we've kind of worked through this pandemic with all of you and all the viewers. So.
Cool. Well, I'll go ahead and hand you the virtual microphone. I know that you have a lot of experience already with going online since you're an online school. So go ahead and share your experiences with it. I'm looking forward to this. Go ahead.
So I wanted to talk a little bit today about perseverance and kind of, making it through. I think a lot of people had to persevere through this pandemic, specifically within the world of education. We've asked students, teachers, leaders, everyone to do things basically that they've never done before. If you look at the direct definition of perseverance, it's doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. So we're being asked to accomplish these tasks, to teach in a different way, to learn in a different way, despite having any sort of immediate gratification or instant gratification. Too often we live in a world of needing that instant gratification, but in this case, we had to delay that a little bit. So if we go back and take a look at like March 13th, I don't think anyone would argue that that's a pretty significant date in the history of education as you look back, years from now at this pandemic, and sometimes change is born, out of months of planning, and sometimes change is born out of an immediate necessity, or in this case, a global pandemic. I think it became apparent more than ever that everyone in the educational landscape on that date or shortly thereafter would have to learn to persevere through the pandemic. So, with that said, we began to plan for the unknown. Schools, politicians, leaders, the Pennsylvania Department of Education, everyone was planning for what the future looks like without knowing what the future truly held. And certainly in education that can be the case, but usually you kind of have an idea of what your school year is going to look like. You have an idea of what your school year is going to wrap up like. You know that, your fourth quarter of your year is going to look like maybe some standardized testing. Maybe you're going to do some benchmarks. You're going to do some prep work leading up to, what the end of the year becomes. But in this case, that was kind of all out the window, and we kind of just had to persevere and make it through. We began to plan for the unknown in a time of unknown. And so I guess in essence, what it looked like was the federal government was probably sitting there stating, well, how do we meet the needs of states, right? How do we meet the needs of each individual state? And the state government's going, okay, well, how do we meet the needs? What can we provide to meet the needs of all of our schools? And school leaders are sitting there going, well, how do I meet the needs of my teachers or my faculty or my staff? And then the teachers are sitting there going, how do I meet the needs of my students? However, if you take a look at what students were doing, I think it was a little bit more all over the map, so to speak. Students are taking a look at their individual needs, right? So, obviously there's a lot of change for them, and with change often comes loss, a loss of something, or something's different, or something's not the way it was, something's not the way it used to be. So students were figuring out how to navigate this new virtual world, so to speak, in many cases. And certainly each school was different in its approach. Each school was different in its demographics. Each school was different in its, equitable access, so on and so forth. But students were really trying to figure out, some maybe what's the easy route? Some, maybe should I spend more time studying? Some, how do I, figure out a way to play baseball again? How do I survive? How do I get my next meal? It really depends specifically on the student. Certainly there was a lot of loss there, no spring sports, no prom, no graduations, or maybe delayed graduations, or maybe there was a need for graduation to go virtually like ours had to for the first time ever. But through all of that, you can pretty much draw a line directly back to perseverance. All of the stakeholders within the school had to persevere and figure out the new way. Families, parents, so on and so forth. So I think it's important to never forget about the gains as well, though. While students may have had to persevere through some of those losses with spring sports, graduation, prom, I tend to think back and reflect on the amount of perseverance, dedication, self-sacrifice, and the life lessons that students have learned throughout this pandemic in order to not only go on in some cases for graduating seniors and tackle the world, but to go out and begin the next chapter of their life, or maybe approach that next grade level with a little more vigor. Some of our teachers as well had to persevere throughout this. I think back to one of my teachers in specific who has 5 children of her own. So not only is she responsible for accomplishing the tasks that we're asking of her as an educator, but she's also responsible for trying to educate her 5 children at the same time. And, right, wrong, indifferent, fair, unfair, that's what we asked of them. And we had to make it work. I think it was a beautiful collaboration between not only our administrative team, but just listening and sitting in links. I know myself and our other high school principals sat in links probably for close to upwards of 20 some hours the first couple weeks each week, just being available to our staff and making sure we're meeting their needs. We can't not meet their needs when we're asking them to meet the needs of our students. We face different challenges as well. And I think one of the important things to never forget is one district isn't the same as another. Certainly as a cyber charter school, we were kind of poised to take on this challenge in a lot better ways than some. But certainly, we had to make some changes and change the way we were approaching things along the way. We have districts across Pennsylvania that are, very different than one another as far as equitable access to internet goes. In my experience, as a cyber principal, it was easy to see all of our students obviously have the internet, they have the assets they need to do their schoolwork. However, I take a look at where my wife teaches, and that may not be the case. I take a look at where I'm on the school board, and it's a little bit different. So I think it really just is a matter of understanding where you're at and meeting the needs of your actual constituents within your school district. This is an ever-changing challenge. And, a lot of times we like to look at challenges within the educational landscape and go, well, I'm short maybe 30 books. Okay, I need to order 30 books. That's a very technical solution. Short books, order books. But this is a very adaptive challenge. It requires a very adaptive solution. You have to think outside of the box. In our case, we had to take a look at how do we make it work for our teachers and how do we make it work for our students. We have some students that are working full-time in order to support their family right now. We have teachers that are, again, they're at home with 5 children, or maybe they're taking care of their parents throughout this, or maybe they've been affected in some sort of way by the coronavirus. And it's really just a matter of persevering through it and making it work. But with that, I think part of it becomes a need for consistent, clear, and concise communication. Without consistent, clear, and concise communication and collaboration, you're not going to be able to meet the needs of your learners. You're not going to be able to meet the needs of your teachers. You're not going to be able to effectively, run the school district the way it should be run, or the way it needs to be run, I guess, in the event of this pandemic. So, that became a critical aspect of this. And one of the beautiful things that our upper admin, our senior leadership did was they set up Tuesday, Thursday meetings to discuss basically our response efforts to the coronavirus throughout. And again, that provided consistent, clear, and concise communication. all of the supervisors and leaders of their respective departments and schools were on the same page, receiving the same information at the same time, able to take that back to our teams and be able to implement what we needed to implement. We spent a lot of time planning and preparing for what our spring looked like, and now we're shifting gears to prep for what it could look like for the opening of school come fall. So one of the personally, one of the great benefits I found during this pandemic is I've kept a little bit of a tally on the amount of hours and miles and so on and so forth that I've saved, right? Miles on a truck may be one thing that you save driving to work, but I've had the opportunity to spend an extra 128 hours instead of driving. And a lot of that's been spent with my family. So, you got to look at the positives when you persevere through something like this. I've had the opportunity to spend, over 100 hours at this point with my wife and my child. And it's been a wonderful experience for us. And it's not to say we haven't had our moments, but, it's been a wonderful thing to be able to do. I think that our children will look back at this and students will look back at this and it won't be, wow, that pandemic was rough. It'll be, wow, man, I remember, watching movies every night with my mom and dad. I remember going to the park. I remember going for a walk. I remember swimming in the pool, whatever it may be. So you got to look at the positives of things as well. And when it comes to online education in general, one of the things that I think you'll see out of this is a more acceptance of online education. I think within the world of, higher education, it's already becoming more of a trend. You see a lot of courses going online. You see a lot of grad programs are completely online. But I think you'll see within the realm of K-12 education that, online education will become a little bit more of a mainstay. Don Cotter once said, in the final analysis, change sticks when it becomes the way we do things around here. So, the future will kind of tell us if this change will stick. We'll see what happens, but I don't think online education is going anywhere, and I think you're going to see schools embrace the opportunity to educate their students in this innovative way a little more and more. One of the things that I want to talk about as well is a little bit unique to me is my kind of story in graduating from college. I had the opportunity to attend Slippery Rock University in Slippery Rock, PA, and to student teach in Mexico City, Mexico in 2009. That was during the spring of 2009 when the H1N1 pandemic and kind of swine flu hit. And while I've never want to say that I can experience fully what our high school seniors are going through, I also, wasn't able to graduate with my peers during that time due to the pandemic. When we came back, we had a separate graduation. And it was honestly a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful, close-knit group of 22 students or college graduates at that point who got to graduate together, and I still keep in touch with many of those to this day. So I think it's something to look back upon. And again, I don't want to ever say that I know what you're going through, but I can relate in a way. And, I just hope that, my experience of sharing that can help with some normalcy and just know that the life events you have are going to shape who you are and who you'll become. And, we're very proud of our 2020 graduates and just very proud of all students who have made it through 2020 and very proud of all the educators and teachers and principals and everyone out there. And it's just, it's great to be able to share my story, and it's great to be able to connect with you.
Thank you. Well, so Dr. Barris, first, thank you so much for sharing your message. I agree with you that there are opportunities that we're seeing here, that there's some silver lining to what's been going on, but we're also trying to learn from what we've experienced. And as you noted, some of this stuff we were kind of prepared for, and you more so than most of us, but it's hopefully now a good starting point for looking forward to a future where we have a little more control over what happens in the classroom. Now, you mentioned that one of the big things for you that helped you get through this period was the clear, concise communication. And I've certainly seen that as well. I can relate to the teacher you talked about. I have 4 children. 2 of them are in middle school. So I was dealing with 17 teachers as well as my 27 students. And
right.
communication was the biggest thing. Now, you talked about communication within your school from admin to teachers and the staff. What about communication from the school to the parents and the students? Are there any lessons that maybe things that you were already doing or things that you tried during COVID as far as improving the transparency, improving that communication with parents, that might be beneficial to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's certainly beneficial to always include your family and your students. One of the things that we ensured we did was to have our school counseling department available for any students who were impacted. We took a close look at any students who were impacted as well by the coronavirus and try to make sure we worked with those students and just ensure that we're meeting their needs. Additionally, we have consistent email pushes that we push out to our families to update them. We have routine phone calls that go out from our academic advising department to families as well. And I think that, looking back, there's always more you could have done, certainly sort of situation, but I do feel that we're really poised well to kind of continue the systems we had in place and ensure that, we kept our meeting our marks and meeting our goals of engaging our families and ensuring that they're continuing to push through their education and learn and grow, throughout the spring semester. While other schools were probably, or I know other schools were looking at how do we come up with these systems of communication, how do we, push out information. Certainly some schools, again, more poised to be able to do that than others. If you have the Remind app or Parent Square or something along those lines, it can be easy to push out communication, whereas others, it's not so easy. There was a lot of innovative ideas that float around. There was a lot of things that I would just pause and go, wow, that's a really great idea. Local school district, Butler School District here in Pennsylvania, recognized early on that their students may not have access to technology. They may not have the internet. So what do? They collaborate with a local radio station, and they're pushing out lessons at the elementary level to K-3 students, I believe it was. And it's awesome. Kids are still getting to hear their parents, their teachers, they're getting to hear the lessons they need, whether it just be basic reading and math. It was something more than nothing at that time. I think that the next challenge is going to be how do we push it to the next level for the fall? Because I don't think any parent, principal, teacher, student is going to expect to just receive what they received in the spring, nor should they. You got to keep pushing for that next level, and that's okay. I mean, I think all educators understand that it's always, how do I teach that lesson a little better? I don't think we have ever walked away from a lesson and go, wow, 100% nailed that. All my kids are distinguished. They're going to get an A+. There's always that one thing you could have done. So it's always pushing for that next level. Our local school district did a phenomenal job delivering food to families. All families that wanted it, they're bringing the lunches, the school breakfast, the school lunches, and they're continuing that program all the way through June. So it just depends on what specific school you're looking at, but there's a lot of innovation going on.
All right. A couple things to unpack here. First, I think that radio show, brilliant. That never occurred to me. One thing that we did is we started as teachers divvying up responsibilities. So for example, I love to teach math. And so I would record all the math lessons and put it on a YouTube channel, but that doesn't help the people with struggling internet connections. Radio and podcasting would be a solution there. And honestly, I didn't even consider that. That's a great idea for getting lessons to our students. When you talked about communicating with families, you mentioned having routine emails as well as phone calls from your academic support staff. Were those things that were regular, or was it just checking in with certain students? Can you talk just a little bit more about how that communication went out?
So as a cyber charter school, one of the things that we understand and know is our students, not all of our students are always engaged. Not all of our students are always going to be 100% compliant. One of the things we have in place for that is a periodic review of our students by teachers, academic advisors, our intervention specialists, certainly academic leadership, whoever it may be, But more importantly, we understand that getting that family on the phone and having a conversation with them is critical to ensuring that they know where their student stands. When we have students come in, one of the things we go over at orientation is when your student comes into PA Cyber, as a parent, we expect you to be having a conversation, even if it's minimal, daily with your students, having a conversation surrounding, hey, did you do your work? Is everything on your to-do list complete? And then also not only doing that, but logging into our system to check and see if that information is posted, it's accurate, it's graded, and everything's turned in. So those are some of the critical things that I think I could give as a takeaway for anybody moving towards online education is make sure you're communicating, consistently and clearly with your parents, and make sure your parents, if you have the ability, are checking in, your grade book or student information system, whatever it may be, to make sure the work's being completed. It's kind of funny to see my wife tell me, yeah, I had to have a conversation with the mom and the kid said they turned it in. I know they didn't turn it in because they didn't see it, but the mom thought they turned it in. It's like, I've dealt with that one before. So yeah. You got to make sure and follow through on both ends, from the school and the family. And I think it becomes even more critical to know that really that community, school, and family have to come together to support a student in a cyber environment.
That's great. Now, one of the chief concerns that I had during COVID, and that I know a lot of teachers and parents had, is as we're now learning from home, our students don't have the same kinds of social interactions that they had before. Many were feeling isolated, anxiety went up, depression went up, and we're seeing those numbers continue to climb. You've been dealing, as an online school, you've had to deal with that for 20 years. What are things that you do in the online environment to ensure that the students are still having some social interaction with each other?
Yeah, so under normal circumstances, we actually break down our school because we have students, if you picture, Pennsylvania as being that basically rectangle, mm-hmm. We have from each corner of the state all the way across. So we break down into our western, central, and eastern areas of the state. And we have an entire program called our Family Link program that can link families together for educational field trips, fun activities, extracurricular activities, whatever it may be. We also have provided, we have, I think, 9 regional offices throughout Pennsylvania as well, where families can go and they can participate in things like guitar lessons, or maybe it's fencing, or different activities that are in addition to extracurriculars, so to speak. Our students also have the opportunity to participate in any of the local sports that their school district offers outside of the normal school day. So that's a great way for them to connect as well. But during this pandemic, we had to quickly pivot, and we were able to quickly pivot because we had already offered some virtual offerings, because certainly not everyone is handy to the Pittsburgh or Harrisburg or Philadelphia area or Erie area or wherever the event's occurring.
Right.
And we were able to quickly leverage some virtual field trips, some virtual experiences. Certainly there, you see a lot of zoos, Facebook Living, some animal experiences and excursions. And certainly my wife and my child and I have participated in those as well, and taken a look at those. And that's great to see. But it's again, just, you have to meet everyone where they're at. If they're online, if you can only be online, you got to meet them there. If they can't get online, do the Butler School District thing and go on the radio. So those types of events and those types of programs are inherently a part of our school, and we're able to do that. One of the things we also did was we allowed our teachers to offer some of those types of experiences in the classroom during the weeks of standardized testing that normally would have occurred. Certainly we didn't have our Pennsylvania State of assessments or PSSAs, or our Keystone exams, which would be our Bio, Algebra 1, and English 10 exams, kind of our high school exams this year, because they were canceled. So those weeks we were able to, again, pivot and offer some enrichment activities and opportunities for students to just take a breather and take a break. Students and teachers alike, it's okay to step away from direct instruction or explicit instruction for a few days and just kind of unwind a little bit and decompress, and maybe you need to just have that experience and talk about some of those emotions, or maybe you just needed a break, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to see moving forward that teachers, both online and face-to-face, are going to take more of those opportunities to step away from your normal curriculum, step away from your testing, and just have those opportunities to talk with your students, to try different things out. And so it's cool that we're seeing that it's working right now in crisis, but I think we're going to plan for that in the future, because we're seeing some positive benefits from that for sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Barris. If people want to connect with you, or is there a place I should send them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Dr. Jerald A. Barris, or they can certainly send me an email, jerald.barris@gmail.com, and it's jerald.barris@gmail.com. So.
Awesome. We'll link that in the description. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.